Hi, John here again, and in this video I'm going to show you a few different ways on how you can find the actual section of music that you want to look at a bit more closely. And by that I mean the process I outlined in my previous 3 videos. Where you can look at that as sort of like the microscope version of score study, where you really dig in and look at everything closely and try to understand it to the point that you can actually recreate it yourself and learn from it. But to actually find those moments in your favorite pieces, I found that just by listening is of course a good way, but it's also easy to forget where that place was, especially if it's a really long orchestral piece. You know, some of the romantic pieces can be quite long, as you know. Like Mahler, one movement can be. It's very common that it's over 20 minutes for just one movement. So if you find a cool moment there, it can be quite hard to find the exact spot again. So a way around this is, of course, just to pause whatever music you're listening to and just write down the time. But I found that when I try doing this, I tend to either forget about it, or I don't have anything close by to write on, or I sort of fool myself into, oh yeah, I would totally remember that, and then usually I don't. So and the benefit of doing the things that I'm going to show you here is that you also get that other side of score reading. I mean, the more common side, I guess, because when most people talk about score reading practice, it's usually looking at the score while listening to the music while following along in the score, and that's a good method if you want to get a broader overview of a piece, and you can get the general flow a bit more. But I find that if you're not a super fast and experienced score reader, it can be hard to get down into any details because the music is just keeps moving forward. So I found this way to be a sort of a happy midpoint to doing score study, and also it's a great way to develop your inner ear. And if you don't know what that means, it means basically your ability to look at a score page or just imagine music, and so you can, if you look at this score page, for example, that you can imagine the sound of 2 clarinets and a bassoon, or whatever combination it might be. So the regular way to do the score study would be to just listen to the music while reading along here, and you read the one line at a time. So you would start this movement and you would read through the whole movement, just following clarinet 1 here. And then you do the same, starting with clarinet 2 and finally with the bassoon. But as you can see, if you do this with a trio like this, okay, that's not too much work. But if you do it with a huge orchestral piece, that's a lot of instruments to follow. So that will still take a lot of time, but I don't think you'll get as deep as with the other method that I talked about in my previous videos. But anyway, what you can do besides just following along mechanically like that, you can decide beforehand that, okay, on this run through of the movement, I'm going to try to follow the melody. So wherever the melody goes, your eye will follow. So let's say the melody, well, actually it does go here. So the melody, here's a unison with everybody, and then the first clarinet has the main melody here. So this is more accompaniment. And even here, because I mean the second clarinet here is more like a shadow to the first clarinet, so that you would look at this part here, and it would keep going like that. So, and by doing it that way, you have to be a bit more active, because you have to follow a certain element of the music, and then you can't just mechanically look at one line at a time. So whenever you have an opportunity to do something like that, where you're more active with the music, that's a good thing. And another part of that, of course, is to decide that, okay, now on this run through, I'm going to follow the accompaniment. And that will usually entail that you look at the bassoon part here. But as you can see, let's see a more blatant example here. You can see in the rhythm here, and the rhythm is always a good indicator of what parts fit together. So here you got exactly the same rhythm, and here you got another rhythm. So you can be quite sure that this part is accompaniment, especially since it's also the lower part here. So that's more usual. And you keep doing that. So you have to be more engaged when you score read, and that's a good thing. Okay, but so that besides doing that, you can do what I feel is probably the best way to develop your inner ear, your mind's ear. And I actually got this exercise from a book called The Mind's Ear, and it's written by a composer and a lecturer named Bruce Adolphe. Adolphe is spelled Adolphe. And if you search for him on YouTube, you'll find quite a few lectures that he has done on different chamber music pieces. And they're really good, actually, so I highly recommend that. But in this book, he talked about different ways to develop that mind's ear, your inner ear. And what he means by that is that you'll be able to imagine music in your head much more clearly, and specifically for our purposes here, to hear the actual instruments in your mind and the music while looking at the score page. And how to develop this, and I'm still working on it as well, but I found this method to be really helpful in moving along quicker. So what he suggests is that you take a pretty short section, and that depends on how good you already are with stuff like this. But it can be from anywhere from one note up to, I don't know, as long as you think you can handle it. But let's just take 2 bars here, for example. So we'll start with the first 2 bars. Oops, there we go. The first 2 bars, and step one is to have the actual piece preferably in your DAW, or in some fashion where you can easily find a specific part of the score and put a marker there. Otherwise you will go nuts if you try doing this directly in Spotify or iTunes. So I would suggest that you find some alternative way to do it. But anyway, you cue up the piece, and then if you don't have perfect pitch, you give yourself, I would just press play and just listen to the very first note, so you know what the starting point is. So you do that, and then you try to imagine the following 2 bars. And really try to hear, and here the colors are the same, so if you can hear this first part here, you'll have a pretty good idea of how, as long as you can read the music and know what you're reading. And like I said before, you can develop that much more quickly with solfege. So in this case it would be do, so, do, so, do, mi, so, mi, do. So if you could hear that in your head, and not only hear it sort of abstractly or like a piano sound, you try to hear the actual colors. And the color here is 2 clarinets in unison and bassoon. And that's a very specific color. So, but this is a good way to learn to remember that. So you try to imagine the music first. Do that a few times. You don't have to spend like several minutes on it, just a few times. And then you listen to it. But you only listen to up until this point. So you don't go to the next bar. So you see it as 2 bar chunks here. So you never go to the next chunk. Okay. So you listen to it and then you try to imagine it again and sort of fix whatever you heard wrong, in citation marks, in your mind before you listen to it. And you can do that several times. So I would suggest that you listen to it, try to imagine it a few times, listen to it again to reinforce it, and do that until you feel that, oh yeah, I got a pretty good idea of how it sounds right now. And then you move on to the next bar. Well, the next 2 bars in this case. So, but before you press play, you try to imagine these 2 bars. And if you get stuck or you have problems with, you know, I don't have any idea of what this will sound like, well, try singing it. And as an absolute last resort, I would just play this bar and try to go from there. So what you're really trying to do is to get the information from your own mind and then use the recording to, and that information is actually a memory of everything you've listened to up until this point. So so if you just try to trust yourself there, and also know that if you would go wrong, you have the recording to support you right after. So it's a really good way of doing something and then correcting yourself, which is the absolute best way to learn something. So I hope this is clear. But and also could also recommend an app you can use for this. And this is, I'm not affiliated with this app in any way. I just found it really useful, and I actually got this for free. I think it was over a year ago, and it was they had some sort of promotion in the App Store, and I just tried it out, and it's called DJ2, and it's spelled DJAY and then a 2. So the cool thing about this app is that you can connect it to your Spotify account, as well as your local iTunes library, and I'm not sure, but maybe even use iTunes Music as well. I haven't tried that, but I know that Spotify works. That's one of their big features. So you have this humongous music library already set up for you. So you can just go in to Spotify in this app, choose the piece you want to work on, and then it loads immediately. And in this app you have a waveform view. So the waveform, the waveform scrolls along with the music. And I use this on my iPad, and you can just press anywhere on the waveform with your finger, and then it will put down a marker. And if you press the play button, it will play from the marker. And it also has a marker button. I don't know what it's called, but it's whenever you press this button, it starts over from the marker. So if you have the play button engaged, it will just play the music, and whenever you press the marker button, it starts over at the marker. But the really cool thing is that you can, if you don't have the play button engaged and you press the marker button, the music will play for as long as you hold it down. So in this case, then you set the marker here just at the start of the this section, bar 3. You hold down the marker button and you let go here, and you can do that over and over again, and that's much easier than, I think it's even easier than using Logic or Cubase or something like that. So I really love that function. So if you don't have but the biggest thing is that you don't have to go through finding this song and have to import it into your DAW and all that stuff. You can just find it in Spotify and then you're set to go. Okay, so I think that's it. If you have any questions or comments or whatever, you can leave it here below the video or just contact me through my contact formula at johnbjorkmusic.com. And again, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll keep putting up more videos. Thanks. Bye.